what's going on, y'all? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And you're about to watch a little OTB LSU.
We're going to give you all the latest, greatest between LSU football, baseball, women's basketball, softball, and everything in between.
Bottom line, if you want to talk Tigers, keep it locked, subscribe, like it.
I want to look at the similarities between LSU and USC. I was kind of diving into this the last couple games. There are a lot more than I even thought, and I have always considered these two teams as very similar opponents going into week one of the football season. You can see why this is being considered a 50-50 game, okay? We'll start with the head coaches. Lincoln Riley in his third season. Brian Kelly, third season. They are both replacing Heisman-winning QBs with a first-year starter. And then that kind of brings us into the quarterback battle that everyone's like, okay, this is ultimately going to decide this game. Miller Moss, 6 foot, 205. Garrett Nussmeier, 6 foot, 200. Miller Moss, 7 touchdown passes last year, 1 interception, started the bowl game, beat Louisville. Nussmeier, 4 touchdowns last year, 1 interception, started the bowl game, beat Wisconsin. You get where this is going. Both QBs have been in the program for 4 years. Both teams had super explosive offenses a year ago. LSU, first overall in total yards. So the number one offense in terms of total yards, and they scored 45.5 points a game. USC, 11th in total yards, scored almost 42 points a game. They also both were on really bad defenses a year ago. LSU gave up almost 30 points per game. USC, 34.5 points per game. Their defense was even worse than yours by season's end, if you can believe that. Now, maybe both of these teams have shored up the problems on that defense because they both hired new defensive coordinators. USC, obviously, D'Anton Lynn. He was the DC at UCLA a year ago. They had a top 25 defense after being awful the year before. LSU, who do they hire? We just talked about it last segment. Blake Baker from Missouri. He was a linebackers coach here a few years ago, but he's back. He had a defense that was ranked in the top 30 after having an awful defense before he got there. You get the point, right? A lot of different numbers you can look at, a lot of similarities between teams A and B. I think USC may have a little bit of a disadvantage as far as your offensive line going up against their defensive line, because I think LSU has a lot better offensive line than USC does. But, I mean, it's not like LSU is going to have a top 10 D-line in the country, so that's pretty much a wash, too. Everywhere you look, you're like, oh, similarity, similarity, similarity. But there are two big differences, in my opinion, both of which are swayed in LSU's favor, that I think could ultimately decide the outcome of this game. First one's pass catchers. You look at the top returning receivers for USC from a year ago. Jacoby Lane, Zachariah Branch, Deuce Robinson. Robinson, 351 yards, 2 touchdowns. Zachariah Branch, 320 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's the thing about Branch. Everybody's like, hey, you got to watch out for Zachariah Branch. He's an explosive freshman. First off, he wowed everybody in his first game as a true freshman last year, which is kind of what got the hype train going. And he's a lot better returner than he is a receiver. He had 3 return touchdowns a year ago, almost 800 yards returning. He was really good there. As far as a receiver, he didn't do much. Now, I expect him to take a second-year jump, but he's still a relative unknown. Okay, so those are kind of the top 3 guys for USC. For LSU, you have a huge advantage here. Your top 3, which Kelly has pretty much confirmed this at this point, it's going to be Kyron Lacey, Chris Hilton, and CJ Daniels. Kyron Lacey last year, despite being the number 3 behind 2 receivers in Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr., who were both drafted in the first round, he still had a really nice season. 558 yards, 7 touchdowns. Again, as that number 3 option, he is your bona fide number 1 receiver going into 2024. Then you had Chris Hilton. Been on the team for a number of years. Hilton's biggest issue has been injuries. When he's been on the field, he's made a lot of plays. 225 yards receiving a year ago, 2 touchdowns. We know he's one of the fastest guys on the team. He can take the top off the defense in the blink of an eye. And then you have CJ Daniels, who obviously was not at LSU a year ago, but when he was at Liberty last year, he had over 1,000 yards. He had double-digit touchdowns. I mean, I think all 3 of these guys, when you compare them to Jacoby Lane, Zachariah Branch, and Deuce Robinson, I think you have a significant advantage on the outside. Also, that's not even including the LSU tight end room, which I think could be the most talented position group. I think is the most talented position group on the entire football team. Mason Taylor, Trades Green, Kamorian Pimpton, They will all play significant roles here in 2024. When we've been out there with the media access at scrimmages, there's been times where both of these guys, even all three at some points, have been on the field at the same time. I mean, you got Mason Taylor. He's as smooth as ever. He does everything right. Trades Green is a 6'8" athletic freak who they throw it up to a number of times, and it's really difficult to cover because he's got the speed to beat all these linebackers that you're going to put on him, and then he just kind of bullies the corners and the safeties into making these contested catches. And then Kamorian Pimpton has taken a significant step forward. If you remember, he was a high recruit coming in a year ago, didn't get a ton of playing time. It was actually Mac Markway, who was recently transferred out of the program, that kind of took over more snaps than Pimpton just because he was a lot better at that blocking tight end. Pimpton looks really good out there. He's blocking well, really good route runner. Nussmeier's went to him a lot when they've done red zone and goal line periods as far as throwing the ball to him. All of these guys are going to play a significant role. So I think you have a huge advantage as far as pass catchers go. And then honestly, guys, I get that these two coaches are compared to a lot to each other. I think you have a coaching advantage with Brian Kelly over Lincoln Riley. Let's just take a look at Lincoln Riley real quick between Oklahoma and USC. He's never had a season where his team was better than they were the year before. Oklahoma, he went 12-2 3 years in a row, then 9-2, then 10-2, then he was out of there. His first year at USC in 2022, he went 11-3. He had a really good year. That was Caleb Williams when he went nuts. He won the Heisman Trophy that year. Last year, big step back, 8-5. Again, he finally moved on from Alex Grinch, which was just like the girlfriend that Lincoln Riley just could not quit. He finally did. He brings in DeAnton Lynn. But what's his team going to be? You don't have Caleb Williams anymore. You lose Marshawn Lloyd, who I think is a really big loss at running back. Now, you got Woody Marks coming in from Mississippi State. I don't think he's Marshawn Lloyd. I think he's a really good running back, but I think he's going to be more of a threat out of the backfield than he is in between the tackles. And he's running behind a little bit of a shady offensive line on top of all that. But when you roll over to Brian Kelly, everyone talks about year 3 Brian Kelly. And guys, it's been at 3 different stops already as far as his year 3. His head coach, Central Michigan, his first year 4-7, his second year 6-5. 2006, he goes 9-4. Cincinnati, 10-3, 11-3, 12-0. Takes the Notre Dame job. 8-5, 8-5, 12-1. He plays for the national championship against Alabama in 2012. Now, he got rolled over in that game, but you get the point. Year 3, whether it's Central Michigan, Cincinnati, or Notre Dame, has always been the big jump for Brian Kelly. You look at LSU, almost the exact same record from year 1 to year 2. 2022, he went 10-4. He won the Citrus Bowl. Last year, 10-3, won the Reliant Quest Bowl. What kind of jump is Brian Kelly going to take here? I would imagine it's going to be at least a little bit of a jump because it's not a coincidence that Central Michigan, Cincinnati, Notre Dame, year 3 was the best years he's had at those programs. I don't understand why you can't do the same thing here. I get it. You lose Jaden Daniels. He was phenomenal, the Heisman Trophy winner. You lose 2 first-round receivers. I think you're going to be significantly better on the defensive side of the ball. And I think Garrett Nussmeier is going to surprise a lot of people. I think that if he can cut down on his turnovers, he's got the arm talent. He can throw the football with the best of them. He's shown a lot of chemistry with these receivers, whether it's in spring or the fall camp that we've been out there to watch. And he's got a ton of weapons at his disposal. I think the running game will be fine. Again, you lose Daniels, but you're kind of reinventing the running game. With Josh Williams, Caleb Jackson, John Emery, Caden Durham's looked really good in fall practices as well. I think you're going to be fine there. I think that you take away all those similarities, you look at pass catchers or offensive weapons in general, and then the confidence level of the head coaches, I think LSU has 2 clear advantages here, and we'll see what happens on September 1st, but look, teams are so similar that when you could find any sort of slight advantage, you take it where you can get it, and hopefully that'll lead to a Tigers victory next Sunday in Las Vegas.
Wow, Jake, what incredible takes.
I mean, those guys, they're just the best.
I think so. And if you think so, again, hit the like button, subscribe, ring the bell so you get notifications when we post every single day here on OTB LSU.